Hi guys, it's Matthew here in London, 26th of March 2025. Rachel Reeves is about to deliver a spring statement. This is apparently going to outline how the government is going to be fiscally responsible. But what's really going on here is the elite is taking money from the people and they're pretending they've got a whole heap of pretenses. Let's just go to Karzy, my website, CARRZEE.org, where I've outlined a little bit of detail what's going on. You can see here that Londoners, very rich city, but people are starting to live in tents in parks. You can see there's the gherkin behind the tents. This is Weaver's Field, just a couple of blocks from where I live. But in short, the government has caved in to billionaire Trump's threats, and it is boosting its warmongering by increasing defense spending. Instead of looking after the vulnerable and the poor, it's pretending it can't tax the wealthy people properly. It's pretending interest rates can't come down because it says wages are too high. But that's not the real reason. The real reason is it has pumped so much money into the economy. It's diluted the value of money. It's using council tax. It's letting the councils put up the tax. It's forcing them to effectively by not funding them properly, although Labour is a little bit better than the Tories were. It's basically now got itself into the position where it's ruining its relationships with many other countries by cutting off development aid at a time where we need their help to prevent the climate from deteriorating. We need to be banding together as groups of countries. In fact, the whole world needs to band together on that sort of stuff, not on trying to stoke terrible wars and basically spend all this money on further wars because we're all scared there's going to be further wars. That's how the elite is sucking money out of taxpayers and giving it to weapons makers and stoking fear. You can see here in today's story, front page story by the FT, it's sort of written here, look, the Chancellor's statement takes place in the shadow of Donald Trump, whose election as US president has forced Britain to increase military spending and raise the prospect of increased tariffs. Reeves has warned that a Trumpian global trade war would create headwinds and further damp growth. That's what she's going to say in a couple of hours, that it's all Trump's fault. But the UK sort of here is providing cover to the US. It should be standing up to bully Trump, in my opinion, and saying, no, we need to look after our people. We don't want to give in to this mafia-like characterization of what's going on by Donald Trump. Now, increasing defense spending is one thing, but one of the main things going on is this, tax increase via council tax. Here in the UK, it's hugely damaging to households. People can't afford to pay 5%, 10% even increases in their council tax. This is forcing people out of the property market. I'll just outline how this is happening. So Labour, instead of tackling the really unfair council tax system, which means it's basically regressive. A lot of the wealthiest property owners pay less council tax than the poorest. And I've been following the money on this, and it's a really bleak picture. It really is bleak how the UK, one of the most sophisticated and modern economies supposedly, but actually it's letting very wealthy property owners get away with paying very small amounts of council tax. Meanwhile, it's putting up council tax dramatically for the poorest. You can see here, British councils have sold $15 billion worth of property. And this is as, the likes of US companies buy into the UK and take over more and more of the UK assets because of this massive spending in massive creation of money and dilution of the value of money. The rich people have increased their share of the wealth. It's deeply unfair. So Labour, supposedly a left-wing government, should be calling this out and not succumbing to it. The Mirror newspaper published some work by PA, and they surveyed their readers, and 94% of their readers are worried about this. Okay, so you can see here in my take on the story, basically on kazi.org, you can see Tower Hamlets, here's my council, 4.99% increase. Newham, just as poor pretty much, 9% increase. It's shocking. This is after 5% and 5%. Remember, the UK government under the Tories, which were replaced by the red Tories, if you like, in the middle of last year, have been starving the councils. That's why they need to put their council tax up so much. So they're basically outsourcing the tax problem to the councils to take the political heat. And yeah, so these tents have been popping up for quite a while now around here in East London. But the other thing that they're doing is taxing people with second homes. Now, this, I guess is progressive. And the Times has done some work on this, but they're not really joining the dots. The Times newspaper is pointing out that second home owners face paying twice as much council tax. And what this is actually doing, so with some tax going from $2,280 a year to $4,560 a year, this is forcing some people with second homes to sell into the market. Now, I mean, you might say that's a bit fair because it's, lowering the property prices. But if big companies are the ones buying, then it's not really helping the most vulnerable and the middle classes, is it? So this, I've got a rather long story on kazi.org. Go there, have a read. So it points out that about 6,000 assets have been sold by councils. So libraries, community centres, playing fields, even historical buildings. Birmingham City Council alone has been a big player, offloading assets to cover budget holes. These are the people supposedly looking after the poor. And this, this whole idea that the Chancellor, the UK government, has no headroom, has to raise taxes for the poor, is just complete nonsense. Okay, this is the line pushed by the Financial Times, who has rich leaders. It was doing it on the weekend again. Here you go. You got the same story basically on the front page. The Chancellor Rachel Reeves is about to argue that Sir Keir Starmer, Prime Minister, has built close ties with Trump that ministers hope will shield Britain from the harshest US tariffs. We've got to look after Trump, don't we? Don't worry about poor old UK middle class and poor people. Come on, Labour, you can do better than this. And finally, let me say this. They're slashing spending on development around the world to finance these increases for weapons makers. It's simply outrageous and unacceptable. Come on.